The rock on which Jesus built the church, the keeper of the keys of heaven. He is Saint Peter, considered the first pope of the Roman Catholic Church. What was his life like? What evidence proves that he was the first pope? All of this will be in this video. Located in the magnificent city of Rome is one of the most important structures in the history of the Church. The St. Peter's Basilica. The foundation of this place is believed to be the spot where the first disciple of Jesus who died for the faith was. Deep within this vast church is said to be the hiding place of the largest treasure of the Vatican. A mystery that has challenged scientists for centuries, the bones of St. Peter. But first, let's turn back time to the 1st century AD. We are in a small fishing village near the Sea of Galilee, in what is now Palestine. In this little village, there was a man named Simon who fished on the sea with his brother Andrew. One day, feeling discouraged because all their nets were empty, Simon suddenly noticed hundreds of people gathering on the beach. And in the midst of the crowd was a familiar man who began to speak, a preacher from the nearby town of Nazareth. Jesus began to preach to the crowd, and Simon just sat quietly on the boat and listened. The crowd grew larger and larger, with people squeezing in to hear better. Jesus was pushed closer and closer to the edge of the water by the crowd, and finally, he stepped onto Simon's boat and asked if he could use it. Simon agreed, and Jesus finished his sermon, then made an unexpected request to Simon. "Let's go fishing." Jesus told Simon to row the boat out and cast his nets. Simon was doubtful, but Jesus' eyes were so confident. Then, as if by magic, they caught a net full of fish. But Simon was afraid because he felt weak and had many flaws. The Lord reassured Simon, "Do not be afraid." That was the fateful meeting that turned Simon into a disciple of Jesus. From then on, he was no longer Simon but Kepha, which means rock in Greek. It is not certain whether St. Peter was married or not. Some biblical texts tell the story of Jesus healing Peter's sick mother-in-law, but they do not mention Peter's wife. There is a version that says Peter was married and had children, but all of his children died for their faith. But regardless, after witnessing the miraculous works of the Lord, Peter left everything to follow Jesus. Peter was the first and most prominent disciple of Jesus, and at times, he spoke on behalf of the Lord and had the task of spreading his teachings to other disciples. When they arrived in Caesarea Philippi, Peter declared that Jesus was the Son of God. And it was here that Jesus appointed him as the rock upon which he would build his church. "And I tell you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not overcome it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven." The Gospel of Matthew states that Peter was the only disciple who was able to walk on water after seeing Jesus do the same. Clearly, Peter had a special position with Jesus and was given more privileges than the others. There is a surprising fact about Peter. He denied Jesus more than once. During the Last Supper, Jesus washed the feet of his disciples, but Peter refused. Jesus replied, "If I do not wash you, you have no part with me." Peter then asked Jesus to wash his hands and head as well. Peter swore that he would live and die for the Lord, even if the other disciples fled. But Jesus had foretold, "I tell you the truth, before the rooster crows, you will disown me 3 times. A woman looked at Peter's face by the fire and accused him of being with Jesus. He immediately denied, saying, "I do not know him." Shortly after, he was accused again of being a follower of Jesus, and this time he denied being one of the disciples altogether. The truth is that he did not deny being from the region of Galilee, but he wanted to deny having any connection to another person from Galilee. He feared that religious leaders might kill him, and he was ashamed to carry the cross before the people. Peter made a strong oath and denied Jesus, but Jesus did not abandon him in any circumstance. Besides the rooster crowing to warn Peter, Jesus looked at him personally. Peter wept with remorse, and only then did he have the courage to admit his mistake, put aside his pride, and become a better person. after being informed by Mary Magdalene that Jesus' body had disappeared. Peter was the first to run to the tomb but found no signs of intrusion. Jesus had died, but God made him alive again. Before ascending to heaven, Jesus chose Peter to be the first to see him. Here, he affirmed his love for Jesus 3 times to nullify his previous 3 denials. Later, Peter, along with James and John, became the 3 pillars of the early church. He presided over the appointment of a new apostle to replace the betrayer Judas and also chaired the council in Jerusalem, which is often considered the first Christian community. Once, Peter used a miracle to heal a lame man at the temple, which caused concern among the Jews, resulting in Peter and John being arrested. They testified for Jesus as the Savior when brought to trial and eventually released due to a lack of evidence. King Herod of Rome imprisoned Peter, intending to parade him before the people after the Passover. However, Peter was miraculously freed by an angel before his execution. He then entrusted the leadership of the Jerusalem church to James and began a new journey. On the Appian Way, Peter encountered Jesus carrying the cross and asked, "Lord, where are you going?" Jesus replied, "I am going to Rome to be crucified again." Peter understood the message and returned to the city, where he was martyred. Later, a church was built at the spot where Jesus appeared to Peter, named Quo Vadis Domini. Peter was imprisoned and sentenced to death by crucifixion because he was not a Roman citizen. He requested to be crucified upside down, feeling unworthy to die as his Lord had. It is believed that after many struggles, Peter's remains were finally buried beneath a large house named after him in the Vatican. In 1967, Pope Paul VI declared that the church had found Peter's bones. And in 2003, they were publicly displayed for the first time. This is the story of a man named Simon, a simple fisherman who met Jesus and became Peter. He admired Jesus but initially denied him, eventually coming to love and accept him fully and ultimately giving his life for his faith. Jesus called him the rock upon which he would build his church, and it was in Rome, where Peter was executed, that the most important Christian organization, the Catholic Church, was established. Peter's successors is the popes. They have continued to lead the Catholic Church with faith in Jesus, overcoming their own weaknesses and challenges. This is my opinion, but I welcome your comments and contributions to any inaccuracies. Goodbye for now and see you later.